To begin, an assistant should pull the skin over the lateral chest wall as far cranially as possible. They'll hold the skin in this position throughout the procedure. The entry site for the chest tube is then located in the 7th to 8th intercostal space at the junction between the dorsal 1/3 and the ventral 2/3 of the body wall. A small skin incision is then made. The length of the incision should be only 5 millimeters longer than the diameter of the chest tube that's being used. The depth of the incision should be increased by creating a small hole in each subsequent layer through the chest wall using thumb forceps and scissors. The tissue layers from top to bottom are cutaneous trunci, fat, latissimus dorsi, and fat. The intercostal muscles should not be incised. As you can see, the depth of the incision from skin to intercostal muscles is very dependent on the patient's body condition, but can be quite a significant distance. Several different thoracostomy tubes are available commercially. This is the Argyle trocar point chest tube. It's quite a stiff plastic. It does have depth measurements on the side and several fenestrations in the tip. Red rubber catheters can also be utilized for this purpose. And finally, a third commercially available catheter manufactured by the Miele Corporation. This catheter has several advantages, including a separate entry port for flushing, a soft, very pliable catheter material that's very comfortable, and a collapsible chamber with unidirectional valves to allow for evacuation. Prior to placing the tube, a sealed collection device must be placed on the end of the tube to prevent a pneumothorax. This device, manufactured by Miele, has a 3-way stopcock in addition to a secondary valve to prevent. The tube length is then pre-measured from the entry site to approximately the point where the elbow meets the sternum. The forcep is then grasped with the dominant hand to allow at least 1 finger's width between the bottom of the hand and the patient's chest wall. The tube is then placed in the incision and manipulated to ensure that the tip is within the intercostal space. The forceps are then turned cranially. The tube is then inserted into the chest cavity with a forceful push. The forceps are then opened and gently retracted as the tube is gently twisted and inserted into the chest up until the pre-measured depth. The assistant then releases the skin, allowing a subcutaneous tunnel to form over. The tube is secured into place by first placing a simple interrupted suture beside the tube in order to allow the skin edges to tightly oppose but not too tightly. When beginning to tie the simple interrupted knot, be sure to leave both ends of the suture material long so that they may be used in the Chinese finger trap. Next, the suture ends should be passed underneath the tube and 1 throw should be placed on top of the tube. The ends should then be crossed underneath the tube once again, and 1 simple throw should be placed on top of the tube. This process is repeated multiple times to form the Chinese finger trap. Each knot should be approximately 5 to 6 millimeters apart from one another. You can see that with each knot, the suture is pulled tight enough to make a slight indentation into the tube. When sufficient repetitions of the trap have been made, the final knot is tied completely with several throws. A final anchoring simple interrupted suture is then placed to the deepest tissue plane possible through the chest wall. If the periosteum can be grasped, it should be.